My friends, when the burdens of life feel too heavy to carry, when your heart is so weary it can barely beat with hope, when you've tried everything you know and nothing has worked, this is the moment where God steps in. Not when you're strong, not when you've figured it all out, but when you're broken, on your knees, barely holding on. That is when the divine power of God begins to unfold in your life in a way that no human hand could ever accomplish. God does not wait for you to be perfect. He moves in the mess. He works in the wreckage. He specializes in fixing lives that the world has given up on. And if you're watching this now, it is no accident. God brought you here because He has something to tell you. There are moments in life when everything we trusted crumbles beneath our feet. The friends leave, the doors close, the health fails, the finances dry up, the mind spins with confusion, and we say, God, where are you? But what you don't realize is that the silence of God is not His absence. It's often the preparation ground for His greatest intervention. When you can't fix your life, when you don't even know what needs to be fixed, God already knows. God sees the pain behind your smile. He sees the anxiety you've hidden from the world. And He sees how hard you've tried to hold yourself together while everything around you fell apart. But hear this today. What you cannot fix, God can transform. There is a difference between repair and restoration. Men can repair, but only God restores. A man can stitch the broken pieces of your life together with thread and hope they hold. But God does not just stitch the pieces. He makes all things new when you come to the end of your strength. That's not the end. That's the beginning of God's power. When you stop relying on your plans and start surrendering to His purpose, things begin to shift in the unseen. You may not feel it immediately, but something begins to stir in the spiritual realm. The wind of change begins to blow. The chains that have held you for years begin to crack. The enemy begins to tremble. Because when God takes over, nothing stays the same. You may look at your life right now and say, it's too late. But God is not bound by time. God does not look at your years, He looks at your heart. And when a heart is broken and open before Him, He moves with mighty power. God does not need a full toolbox to fix your life. He doesn't need perfect conditions. He can take the dust and ashes and create something glorious. He took emptiness and created the universe. So what makes you think He cannot take the broken fragments of your life and build a testimony that will shake the very gates of darkness? God is not intimidated by your past. He's not surprised by your failures. He knew every fall before you ever took a step. And still, He chose to love you. Still, He calls you. Still, He waits for you. God's plan for your life does not expire because of a mistake. Your destiny is not canceled because of what others did to you. When you can't fix your heart, God begins healing the wounds that you don't even know how to explain. He begins replacing pain with peace. He begins lifting burdens that were never yours to carry. And He doesn't just do this partially, He does it completely. But you must understand something. God doesn't fix your life to make it more comfortable. He fixes your life to make it more purposeful. He breaks every false foundation you built your identity on, status, people, possessions, so that He can become your only foundation. He takes away the crutches so you learn to walk by faith. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it feels like loss. But in reality, it is the beginning of freedom. Because when you lose everything but still have God, you haven't lost anything at all. You've gained the only thing that truly matters. You've tried to fix it with your logic. You've tried to fix it with other people. You've tried to fix it with distraction, with compromise, with pride, but none of it has worked. And now you're tired of pretending, tired of fighting battles in your own strength. tired of the emptiness that no achievement can fill. That's where God comes in. When you finally lay down your weapons, God picks up His. When you stop trying to be your own Savior, God reveals that He has always been your deliverer. God does not consult your circumstances to determine what He can do. He is not limited by your limitations. He is not restricted by your surroundings. He does not look at your bank account, your education, your relationships, or your age and say, well, there's only so much I can do. No, God says, is anything too hard for me? And the answer is always no. You cannot imagine the doors God can open when He's the one holding the key. You cannot fathom the peace God can bring when He steps into your chaos. You cannot comprehend the healing God can perform when He touches the place no medicine can reach, your soul. The truth is, you never had the power to fix yourself, and you were never meant to. That's why God waits. He waits for the moment you finally let go. He waits for the moment you say, God, I can't do this anymore. Because it is in that surrender that the miraculous begins. When your hands are empty, God fills them. When your heart is open, God enters. When your strength is gone, God becomes your strength. So the enemy wants you to believe that it's over. But God is saying, I'm just getting started. Don't measure God's power by your pain. Don't limit His plan by your past. The storm may be raging, but God speaks peace to the winds. The road may be unclear, but God lights every step. You may feel forgotten, but God has written your name on His hand. You are not invisible. You are not beyond repair. You are exactly where God wants to prove Himself in your life. Sometimes God lets you fall apart so you will discover that He's the only one who can hold you together. God doesn't fix your life from a distance. He walks into the very center of your situation. He steps into the fire with you. He gets into the storm with you. He goes to the place others have walked away from. And while they left you, God stayed. While they judged you, God covered you. While they forgot you, God carried you. You don't need to chase people to feel valued when God already calls you precious. You don't need to strive for acceptance when God already loves you with an everlasting love. You don't need to prove your worth when the Creator of the universe calls you His. Some of you have been trying to fix something that was never meant to be held on to. That relationship, that habit, that plan. It's not broken because God wants to punish you. It's broken because He's trying to protect you. God will allow temporary pain to prevent permanent destruction. He will close the door you wanted so He can open the door you need. He will remove what you begged Him to keep because He knows it was keeping you from your purpose. And yes, it hurts, but if you trust Him, you'll see why it had to happen. God doesn't always change your situation. Sometimes He changes you. And once He changes you, you start to see everything differently. The mountain may still be there, but now you have the strength to climb it. The battle may still rage, but now you fight with a faith that cannot be shaken. You realize that the things you lost were never the source of your peace. God was. And that realization will carry you through anything. Because once you've encountered the power of God fixing what you could not, no trial can convince you otherwise. God's timing is not your timing. You may think He's late, but He's always on time. He delays not to deny you, but to prepare you. He takes His time because He is building something solid. If you rush the process, you'll miss the miracle. But if you wait on Him, if you trust Him when it makes no sense, if you worship Him even in the silence, you will see the hand of God move in your life in ways you never imagined. He will take the tears you cried in the dark and turn them into rivers of joy. He will take the nights of despair and replace them with mornings of peace. What you thought was the end was only the beginning of a new chapter written by the author of your soul. There are some things only God can fix, not your wisdom, not your money, not your efforts, only God. And when He fixes it, no man can take the credit. No enemy can reverse it. No fear can steal it. When God fixes your life, it stays fixed. not perfect but purposeful, not easy but empowered, not painless but protected. You will still walk through storms, but you will walk with peace. You will still face battles, but you will fight with strength that is not your own, and you will come out on the other side with a testimony that will change lives. Stop asking people for what only God can give. Stop running to temporary solutions for eternal problems. Stop trying to heal yourself with things that only make you more broken. Run to God, cry out to Him, pour out your heart. He is not far from you. He is closer than your breath. He is listening and He is moving, even when you don't see it, even when you don't feel it, even when everything screams that nothing is changing. God is working behind the scenes. He's rearranging, He's rebuilding, He's restoring. Your life is not over. Your story is not finished. It's being rewritten by the one who holds eternity in His hands. Trust Him. Surrender to Him. Let Him fix what you cannot, because when God fixes your life, you won't just survive, you will shine, not for your glory, but so the world will look at you and say, surely this was the work of God, and you will say, yes, when I couldn't fix my life, God did. And now I tell you with all the fire in my soul, there is no brokenness too deep for God's healing, no chaos too loud for God's voice, no failure too final for God's mercy. When you are shattered and scattered, lying in pieces with no direction left, that is when God's hand becomes visible. God does not reach down with hesitation. He moves with power, with love, and with certainty. He knows what others do not. He sees what lies beneath your pain, and He knows how to reach into the cracks of your soul and restore the parts of you that even you gave up on. This is not just repair. This is divine resurrection of your inner self, done by the one who formed you before you were even known by this world. You see, many people spend their lives trying to be their own solution. They strive to earn approval. They chase after achievement, recognition, relationships, believing that these things will finally fix what's missing inside. But God never created you to be completed by the world. The world can only offer temporary illusions, but God offers eternal restoration. He does not patch the surface, He transforms the root. And the deeper the wound, the more glory God receives when He heals it. The more hopeless the situation, the greater the miracle when He turns it around. So stop measuring your future by the patterns of your past. Stop defining your worth by the opinions of people who don't even see your soul. Your mistakes do not cancel God's purpose. Your delays do not delete God's timing. You are still in the hands of the one who knows the end from the beginning, and that means the story is not over. It doesn't matter who walked away. It doesn't matter what fell apart. God's plan for you is not dependent on perfect conditions. It is dependent on His will. And when God decides to rebuild your life, even the ruins will shine. Some of you have felt like everything in your life has been torn down, one thing after another: your health, your family, your peace, your trust. It's as if everything has been stripped from you. But don't you know that before God builds something sacred, He often clears the ground? He removes what was unstable, what was dangerous, what was built on pride, what was founded on false identity, so He can lay a new foundation in truth, humility, and righteousness. God is not destroying you, He is preparing you. And preparation feels like pain, but it produces power. You may not see it yet, but God is laying every stone with purpose. When you can't fix your life, God invites you to surrender, not to defeat, but to divine intervention. And that surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom, it is power, it is the key that unlocks what no effort ever could. The world teaches you to hustle, to fight harder, to push more, but God teaches you to kneel, to wait, to trust. And in that stillness, miracles begin to rise, because when you stop striving in your flesh, you start living by God's power. And that power has no limits. Listen to me. What you lost will not compare to what God is about to release. What was taken will not outweigh what God will return. You thought you were being emptied, but God was creating space for something far greater. Sometimes He lets the cup be emptied so that it can be filled with a new measure of strength, a new level of peace, a higher calling. What you see as loss, God sees as positioning. You are not being punished, you're being prepared. You're not being left behind, you're being refined. And what comes after this will carry more glory than you've ever seen before. Do not underestimate the quiet work of God. Just because things are silent on the outside does not mean nothing is happening. Seeds grow in silence. Foundations are built underground. Miracles are formed in the invisible. God does His greatest work in the dark, and when the time is right, He brings it into the light with power and clarity. Your life is not on pause, it's on purpose. God is not late, He is intentional. Trust the process. Trust the pain. Trust the silence, because all of it is leading to something sacred. When you can't fix your life, God reintroduces you to a different kind of strength. Not one that is loud, but one that is unshakable. Not one that shouts, but one that stands. A quiet strength rooted in faith. A bold peace rooted in knowing that God is fighting your unseen battles. And when you walk with that confidence, it doesn't matter what people say, what storms rise, or what doors close, because you know who holds your tomorrow. You know who protects your name. You know who guards your soul. There is a sacred power in letting go. When you stop clinging to what you think should be and release it to God, you make room for what was always meant to be. Let go of the pain. Let go of the bitterness. Let go of the weight. God cannot pour new oil into a vessel that's still full of yesterday's poison. He cannot give you today's blessing while you're still chained to last year's betrayal. It is not that God is withholding. It is that your hands are too full. Open your hands, release it. Watch what He does when you finally let Him take control. And when He does take over, do not expect it to look the way you imagined. God does not work according to your logic. He works according to His wisdom. He may remove people you thought would stay. He may shift you into places you never planned. He may lead you into seasons that test everything in you. But it's not to destroy you, it's to stretch you. It's to deepen your trust, to shape your character, to grow your spirit. Because God is not just interested in fixing your comfort, He is preparing you for impact. The most powerful thing about God fixing your life is that He does it from the inside out. People often want external change, a new job, a better relationship, a bigger breakthrough. But God begins with the heart. He addresses your wounds. He dismantles your fears. He tears down the lies you've believed for years. And that's not easy, but it is holy. Because once God fixes what's within you, the rest follows. Once you are rooted in truth, no storm can uproot you again. Once you are anchored in purpose, no distraction can sway you. Once your identity is found in God alone, you become unshakable. Don't run from the process. Don't resist the breaking, for it is in the breaking that the oil flows. It is in the pressure that diamonds form. It is in the fire that gold is refined. And if you're in the fire right now, know this: God is with you in it. He has not left you. He is watching every second. He is measuring every heat, and He will not allow the fire to consume you, only to purify you. Because what's on the other side of this season is worth every tear, every battle, every unanswered question. You may be asking, why did it happen this way? Why the betrayal? Why the delay? Why the heartache? But you don't need all the answers to trust the one who holds them. You don't need to see the whole picture to walk by faith, because God is too wise to make mistakes and too loving to ever abandon you. And even when you don't understand His hand, you can always trust His heart. So lift your head, dry your tears, take a deep breath, because God is not finished. The story is still unfolding. The promise is still alive. The door may be closed, but the key is in God's hand. The night may be long, but the dawn is coming. And when God finishes what He started in you, you will look back and say, it had to happen this way, because if it hadn't, I would never have known the depth of His power, the reach of His mercy, the strength of His love. You may be wounded, but you're not worthless. You may be tired, but you're not forsaken. God is still working, and what He is building in you will be stronger, deeper, and more beautiful than you ever dreamed. When you can't fix your life, remember, it's not your job. It's God's, and He never fails. And I speak now to the soul that feels buried beneath years of disappointment, to the one who sits quietly with silent prayers, wondering if God has overlooked you. Hear this truth as if your very spirit depends on it. God has not abandoned you. He has not withdrawn His presence, even though you have walked through valleys where no voice echoed back. His silence is not absence. It is strategy. For when God is silent, He is often securing the foundation of a breakthrough so great it must be hidden until it is ready. God does not build greatness in public first. He constructs it in secret. He shapes character in the dark. He forges resilience in stillness. And when the time comes, what He bursts will leave no doubt that it was His hand, not yours, that fixed what was broken. Many believe that when nothing changes outwardly, nothing is happening spiritually. But this is where the wisdom of God baffles human understanding. God often starts in the invisible. He begins His work in realms your eyes cannot see and your ears cannot hear. While you cry, He counts every tear. While you wait, He aligns circumstances beyond your awareness. And while you wonder if your voice even reaches Him, He is already dispatching answers. God is not slow. He is strategic. He is not distracted. He is deliberate. And what seems like delay is often the perfect alignment of your growth with His divine plan. Do not despise the process, even if the process feels like punishment. For the trials you face today may be the very tools God uses to carve wisdom into your life. A fixed life is not always a comfortable life. It is a focused life. God removes the unnecessary to expose the essential. He allows the shaking to remove what was never secure. What was built on fear must fall. What was built on pride must crumble. What was rooted in dependency on others must be cut down, because only when you stand solely on God can you stand unshaken. Let me speak directly to the doubter in your mind. The voice that tells you this is too big for God. Silence that lie now. God is not limited by the scale of your pain. The magnitude of your mess does not intimidate Him. In fact, it is the very canvas upon which He performs His greatest miracles. What the world labels as hopeless, God sees as raw material. Where others see ruins, God sees a future sanctuary. He sees purpose where others see failure. He sees beauty where others see ash. And He specializes in taking what the world has discarded and raising it into something that brings glory to His name alone. The transformation God brings doesn't always look like escape. It often looks like endurance. He may not remove the storm, but He will teach you to walk on the waves. He may not silence every critic, but He will give you the confidence to walk past them without flinching. And when the world sees you walking through fire and not burning, they will know you are walking with God. That is when your life becomes a testimony, not of your survival, but of His faithfulness. Not of your strength, but of His unshakable power. You have to understand something very deep. God never fixes for your comfort alone. He fixes for your calling. He repairs for your readiness. He restores not so that you can return to who you were, but so you can rise into who you were always meant to become. God doesn't bring you back. He brings you forward. He pulls you from the pit, not so you can walk the same path, but so you can blaze a new trail. A life rebuilt by God is not a replica, it is a revelation. He changes your direction. He changes your appetite. He changes your desires. And suddenly, things that once enticed you lose their grip. People who once distracted you no longer hold your attention. Because when God fixes your life, He also fixes your focus. And what is brokenness but the opportunity for God's light to shine through? The cracks in your story are not marks of shame. They are evidence of where God entered. Your wounds are not weaknesses. They are windows for His glory. So don't hide what hurt you. Let it testify. Let it speak. Let it declare to the world that you were touched by the hand of God and came out stronger, wiser, and more anchored than ever before. Let them see that you did not escape the fire. You overcame it. You were not spared the pain. You were sustained in it. There is something that happens in the life of a person who stops asking, why me, and begins to ask, what is God teaching me? That shift, that sacred shift, is the birthplace of breakthrough. When you no longer see yourself as a victim of life's storms, but as a vessel in the hands of the Almighty, you start to live with purpose, even in pain. You begin to understand that God doesn't waste a single. He collects them, He records them, and He transforms them into rivers that water your destiny. God does not need the approval of man to move in your life. He does not need a committee. He does not need conditions. He only needs your yes, your full surrender. You can stop bargaining with Him. You can stop trying to earn what has already been prepared. The door you are knocking on has already been built. God is waiting for your surrender, not your perfection. And the moment you stop trying to fix yourself in your own wisdom, you allow the true power of God to take over. You may not understand why the road has been so rough, but God does. He has seen every trap the enemy tried to set for you. He has blocked attacks you never knew existed. He has allowed pain to shape you because comfort never would have changed you. You were chosen for a deeper calling, and with that calling comes a greater refining. But do not confuse pressure with punishment. The pressure is proof that something powerful is being produced in you. And I declare this now into the very core of your being. God will restore, God will rebuild, God will renew, but it will not be done your way, it will be done His way. And that is the highest blessing of all. Because when God does it, no one can undo it. When God opens the door, no man can close it. When God exalts you, no enemy can block it. When God places you, no storm can move you. What is built on God stands forever. So be still, be bold, be unshakable, because your life, yes, your very life, is in the hands of the one who sculpted mountains, parted seas, commanded the sun, and formed your soul. If He can sustain the galaxies, He can surely carry you through this. If He numbers the stars, He knows your every thought. If He commands the wind, He can calm the chaos in your heart. And if He says you are not finished, then nothing on this earth, not pain, not failure, not time, can stop what He will do. The very thing you thought would destroy you is becoming the stage where God will display His might. The place where you fell will become the place where you rise, and those who witnessed your suffering will watch you shine, not because of your strength, but because you surrendered to the one who is above all. So don't just ask God to fix your life. Ask Him to take full control of it. Invite Him into every corner, every scar, every unspoken fear. And watch what happens when the Almighty takes the pen and finishes the story in a way only He can. Because when God fixes your life, He doesn't just patch up what's broken. He writes a new narrative, sets a new course, and turns your pain into power, your past into purpose, your tears into testimony. And that is not just restoration, that is redemption. That is the work of God alone. And now, I speak to the one whose heart feels like it's been shattered too many times to be whole again. The one who walks with a smile but cries in secret. The one who is tired of pretending, tired of striving, tired of hoping, because every time they hoped, something was taken. Listen closely, because this is not a moment of coincidence. This is a divine appointment. God has not brought you this far to abandon you now. The weight you carry, the weariness in your bones, the confusion clouding your thoughts, none of it is too much for God. You may feel like you're at the end of yourself, but that is exactly where the beginning of His power begins. God does not start His work in places of comfort. He starts it in the wilderness. He starts it in the storm. He begins His most profound miracles when the soil of your heart has been tilled by suffering, humility, and surrender. It is in the emptying of your own strength that God pours in His own. You see, the soul that has been broken open is a soul ready to be filled with something divine. And God does not fill halfway. He does not repair only what is visible. He reaches the hidden places, the ones buried under years of fear, the wounds that words cannot explain, the disappointments that dried into silence. God sees it all, and He touches it with power that no human hand could ever reach. And when God begins to fix what you cannot, it is not through chance, but through deliberate grace. He starts with your mind, removing lies that were spoken over you since childhood. He removes the identity that the world tried to stamp onto your soul. He peels off the labels others use to define you and replaces them with truth. You are not your mistakes. You are not your trauma. You are not what they said you'd never become. You are what God declares. And when God speaks identity into your life, no voice can override it, not even your own self-doubt. The healing God brings is not momentary. It is deep, eternal, and thorough. He does not dress the wound, He cleanses it. He does not just remove the poison, He transforms the very root. That bitterness you carried, He turns it into wisdom. That shame that followed you like a shadow, He lifts it and replaces it with honor. That fear that paralyzed you, God breaks it and births courage in its place. What used to enslave you becomes the very thing that reminds you of your freedom, not because you escaped it, but because you overcame it with God's strength, carrying you through every dark hour. And make no mistake, when God fixes your life, it will often look like loss before it looks like victory. People may walk away, things may fall apart, plans may unravel, but what feels like destruction is often construction in the hands of the divine. God does not build on unstable ground. He clears away what was sinking, what was shallow, what could not support your calling. He uproots everything that is false to make room for what is true. And in the moment, it may feel like you are being stripped bare, but in truth, you are being freed. Freed from the weight of what was never meant to stay. You cannot hold on to what God is trying to remove and still expect to move forward. That's why sometimes He will allow things to fall even when you don't understand, because He is not focused on your temporary comfort. He is focused on your eternal purpose. God is more committed to your growth than to your feelings. And yes, it stings. Yes, it confuses. But through the confusion, a greater clarity is coming. Through the sting, a greater strength is rising. The pruning is painful, but the fruit that follows will be abundant. God is not afraid of your confusion. He is not repelled by your weakness. He welcomes your honesty. He is drawn to your humility. And when you fall to your knees and say, God, I don't know what to do, that is when heaven responds. Because the admission of your helplessness is the key to unlocking divine assistance. You were never created to be your own answer. You were created to rely on the one who needs no counselor, who fears no enemy, who knows no failure, and He is with you now. The world will tell you to be strong on your own, but God tells you, my strength is made perfect in your surrender, and that is not a contradiction. It is the mystery of divine power. Where man ends, God begins. Where your wisdom fails, His voice rises. When your vision is blurred by pain, His light guides your next step. And that next step may be small, but it is sacred. Because when God leads, even the smallest steps shift destinies. Sometimes the most powerful act of faith is not shouting from the rooftops, it's whispering to yourself, God is still with me when everything says otherwise. It's choosing to believe in His promise even when your heart is heavy. It's waking up each day and deciding not to quit because you trust that God is still working. And He is. Oh, He is working in ways you cannot see. He is speaking into rooms you haven't entered yet. He is preparing blessings you aren't ready to carry. He is clearing paths you don't even know are blocked. When God fixes your life, He not only changes the outcome, He transforms you in the process. You become stronger, but not bitter, wiser, but still soft. You gain discernment, but keep your compassion. You stop chasing approval because you know you're already known and loved by the one who matters most. This transformation is not loud, it is quiet, but unstoppable. And when others look at you and ask how you made it, you will not have a formula to give. You will have only one answer. It was God, only God. So if you're in a place where nothing makes sense, where the pain feels endless, where the weight seems unbearable, do not give up. Do not give in to despair. Because the very moment you feel like breaking may be the moment God is about to break through. Do not walk away from what God is still working on. He has not left you. He is perfecting, aligning, restoring, and preparing. You will not just come out of this, you will rise transformed by the fire, refined by the storm, anointed by the struggle. God's fix is not temporary. It is eternal. It doesn't just change your situation, it changes your soul. And in that change is where true freedom lives. So hold on, breathe deep, stand still in faith, because God is not just fixing your life, He is rebuilding your foundation. He is writing a greater story than you imagine. He is taking everything meant for harm and turning it into a display of His might. This is your moment to believe again. Not in yourself alone, but in the one who made you, who shaped you, who called you by name before the world ever knew your presence. You may feel unseen, but God sees you. You may feel unheard, but God hears every cry. You may feel forgotten, but God remembers every detail. And when His hand moves, when His timing aligns, and when your heart fully yields, what happens next will not only restore your life, it will leave a mark of His glory on everything you touch. So now I speak to your spirit. Stand up, not in your own power, but in the power of God. Lift your head, not because the world is easy, but because the one who watches over you never sleeps nor fails. You were not created to drift in defeat. You were not designed to crumble beneath pressure. You were formed by the hand of God Himself, breathed into by divine purpose, and called into a life that reflects His glory. What is broken in your life is not the end, it is the beginning of something sacred. God does not throw away what is damaged, He redeems it, He restores it, He repurposes it. And He does it so perfectly, so thoroughly, that the scars you carry will not speak of pain, but of power. This is your moment, not to run, not to hide, not to pretend, but to return to the one who has never turned away from you. Examine your heart. Ask yourself, what have I been trying to carry alone? What have I been trying to fix with my own hands? Where have I forgotten that God is able? And then release it. Surrender it all. The fear, the confusion, the burden of trying to hold everything together. Let it fall into the hands of the one who holds the galaxies in balance and yet still knows the very number of hairs on your head. He has not forgotten you. He has not forsaken you. He has been waiting not for perfection, but for your permission. Let God take the place in your life where no person, no plan, and no possession could ever fill. There is no shame in needing help when the one you turn to is the very creator of all things. There is no weakness in surrender when it's God you surrender to. That is the highest wisdom, the deepest strength, and the truest path to peace. So don't delay. Don't wait for a more convenient time or a more comfortable moment. Let this be the hour when everything begins to shift. Let this be the turning point where you stop surviving and start living in the fullness of what God designed for you. This is your call back to the source, your invitation to step out of the shadows of self-reliance and into the blazing light of God's unfailing power. Walk with Him now. Speak to Him from the depths of your heart. Let every breath you take from this moment on be a declaration: I am in God's hands and He is fixing what I cannot. And when the storms rise, and they will, you will not be shaken. When others fall away, you will not be lost, because you will know, not just with your mind, but with your whole soul, that God is your refuge, your repairer, your restorer, and your reward. Live from this place of truth. Rise in it, move in it, trust in it, because when everything else falls away, this will remain unshaken. God is still with you. God is still in control, and God is still fixing your life in ways more beautiful, more complete, and more powerful than you ever dared to imagine. Let that truth settle deep within you. Let it carry you through the night. Let it be your strength every morning. And let your life become the living proof that when you couldn't fix it, God did. And He did it perfectly.